Heavenly Father, as we come to the final chapter of this series about your book, about your word, let us see ourselves as people who share your word, who point people to your Son Jesus. You use us to bring others close to you. And so God, help us to remember that as we go through today's study, and give us a sense of urgency and to be fully equipped for all the witnessing and the work that you have prepared for us. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Great. Well, yeah, so we've got the last Sunday in our series, The Good Book, and we've been talking about the Bible, even though we are always, studying the Bible. We've been taking 4 weeks to talk about the Bible, and this last Sunday, talking about how to share the book, how to share the Bible. And really what we mean with that is not only just giving someone a physical Bible, but really, how do you talk about your faith with people? And the reason that there are no handouts on your tables is because you will get them soon, but we didn't want anyone working ahead. And you teachers, you former teachers, you appreciate this. You know how it goes. That was me growing up. I always want to flip the test over and just get going. But you're going to get something to fill out, and it's going to be great. But today, we are using some resources, some really great resources that we have from Lutheran Hour Ministries. Raise your hand if you've heard of Lutheran Hour Ministries before. Yeah. In fact, I think there was a vicar at Concordia many moons ago that then became the Lutheran Hour speaker. And the Lutheran Hour speaker was the Lutheran Hour, the radio program, as I'm told, used to be at some point the most listened to radio broadcast in the world, at least in the country, and is a big deal, especially with that kind of the height of radio and everything. And they've continued on to produce resources to help churches. And one of the resources that was produced recently gets at this idea of how to talk about your faith. And the term that we're going to be unpacking, let me say why again we're doing this, because today's scripture story is Luke 24, the road to Emmaus. Raise your hand if you've seen this picture before. Yes, I've also heard that this is one of the most famous and recognizable Christian paintings around. I think my pastor from growing up had this in a nice frame in his office, and maybe you had it in your home, but here we've got Jesus walking on the road to Emmaus with the two disciples. And when you're in church, you'll hear this full story and have it all unpacked. And what this story kind of shows is that those two disciples were talking about Jesus. And they were talking about their faith. Now, they're also talking with Jesus. But before they were talking with Jesus, they were talking with one another. And they were eager to figure out, what does this all mean? What is going on? And if you don't remember, they were talking and walking the day Jesus rose. The same day, just a little bit later in the day. They're hearing about this. They're familiar with the reports of Jesus not being in the tomb, and what is that all about? And so they're trying to figure this all out, but they're eager to understand what all of this is, what is going on. And so tying in with that and kind of jumping off of that, the word and the idea that we are unpacking and focusing on is what we'd call an eager conversationalist. Conversationalist. It looks like such a big word up there. Eager conversationalist. But yes, eager conversationalist. That's kind of the idea that we're focusing on. And it ties in with some of the stuff that's done in this book and some of the things that you're going to be doing. But here's kind of the idea. How comfortable are you talking about your faith with other people? Especially people that don't believe the same as you. How eager are you to have those kinds of conversations? Well, that's what we're going to be figuring out today. We actually have a little inventory to really assess how eager you are to talk about your faith, because I kind of like to hound on this from time to time. You guys are the A-team. Not like Mr. T, A-team. You guys are the chosen people, the people set apart to witness to Christ. It is you. You are the front line. It's not other people. It's not experts. It is you. You were chosen to be a part of God's kingdom and to be used to bring others into God's kingdom. God works through you and the conversations you have with other people to bring others in. It's you. Now, how do you feel hearing that? When you're looking down the bench and there's no one else, it's just you, and you're getting sent in. Okay? How comfortable are you? How do these things go? Have you maybe tried talking about your faith with people and it always just kind of gets tense? Or do you just say, I don't know, that's not really me. I'll be really nice to people, but I'm not sure if I actually want to talk to them about anything. Okay? And all these reasons and more is why we need to talk about this. Because again, there is no backup. It's you guys. And I'm confident, and I know that you can be confident, that God has given you everything that you need to witness to Him and to talk about the very things that you believe and the things that give you hope. And I'm certain that you're going to leave today feeling more equipped and feeling more ready to talk about your faith with people that need to hear it. Think about it like this. You're walking along, and there's someone who is bit by a snake. Okay, that's crazy. We have snakes here in Texas, so it's not that crazy. Someone's bit by a snake. But by gosh, you've got the antidote in your pocket. Oh my goodness. Antidote in your pocket. That is such good fortune. Wow. So then you see this person who is struggling with the venom, and you've got the antidote here, but then you're thinking, I don't really want to, maybe they don't really like antidote, or I don't really feel equipped to give them this. Or, I don't know, I don't want to disturb their day or anything. They're probably just minding their own business. So I'm just going to keep going. And, I like having this antidote. It's great. But, I don't know, that's not me. I'm not really a person to give out antidote. Okay, that sounds crazy, but isn't that a little bit of how this is all working with our faith? I mean, people that are poisoned with original sin, and we have the antidote of Jesus and the hope of Jesus that we can share, and yet we're going to pass them by? Don't they deserve to hear that just like you would hope that someone would share that with you if you needed it? Right? Again, you guys have the antidote. You have what you need to share with people that need it. Now, there are ways to do it, and I understand it's fraught with all kinds of difficulties, and it's like, what are the right words to say? When do I speak? I don't know, and I get it. But ultimately, I want you to see that now's the time, and you are the people. And God has appointed you for this task, and it's not as crazy as you think. And once you kind of get the hang of it, you see that's, okay, this is not actually that scary. Maybe Satan has actually been having his way with the way I've been seeing this and making me way more scared than I need to be, okay? So eager conversationalists. So there's really two categories. When there's a bunch of research done, and they were trying to see, okay, assess people's level of comfort with talking to people about faith, God, life, really just anything that matters. And they came up with two categories, those that were reluctant and those that were eager. Okay, here's how they define this. If you're a reluctant conversationalist, if you have less than 10 spiritual conversations per year, and spiritual just being a kind of a catch-all for talking about God, talking about faith, talking about life, things that are really important. Less than 10 in a year. Okay, if you've attended ABC at least 10 times, you're already more than that. And congratulations, that's good. Because this does not necessarily have to be conversations with non-believers. It's just about your faith and things with anybody. Spiritual conversations. Now think about yourself. How many times, maybe besides ABC, how many times have you talked about your faith or God or something with people. Do you think he made 10 a year? And then eager, conversationalist, you could probably guess how they define that. More than 10 spiritual conversations per year. So, okay, easy enough. Now, what's crazy is when they were doing their research and asking people how many conversations do you have, 75% fit into the reluctant category of Christians. 75% of Christians talked about their faith less than 10 times in a year. So then 25% talked about it more than 10, and it could have been 11. It's not that much better. Now again, think about yourself. Like, where are you fitting? And it's not to just heap guilt or anything, but it's really just to have an honest look at, yes, okay, faith is shared, and then shared through words. Yes, we love with our actions and everything, but we do have to talk about these things. Less than 10, more than 10, where are you at? Reluctant, eager? Now, I want to unpack a little bit more about what goes into this reluctance. And then I'm going to have you take an inventory. It's going to be great, I promise. So 2 big kind of categories of reasons that people gave for being reluctant. Okay, it was a matter of avoidance. Like, they didn't really want to do that. They didn't want to bother people. They were kind of, I don't know if that's for me. Or ambivalence. So they're saying, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I don't even think if I say anything, it's really going to make a big difference. It's not really on the top of my to-do list. I got things to do. I got places to go. I got kids to feed. I got a job to do. I got so much going on. You know what? Leave that to the pastor. Leave that to the holy people. And I'm just regular old Joe. And I'm not really, don't really think about it. Okay, that's the 2 things that people quoted as being the reasons that they gave. And when getting a little bit more into the details of this, here are kind of the specific reasons that are captured by those 2 categories. The most common, this is why people avoid it. Religious conversations always seem to create tension or arguments. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a conversation about religion, heck, throw in politics, and it's gotten a little tense. Oh, my gosh. Yes, exactly. And I can see why you'd want to avoid that. If you're someone that doesn't like to ruffle feathers, then it's pretty hard to especially bring it up or even engage when people are talking. Otherwise, second most common, I'm not religious and I don't care about these kinds of topics. That's maybe just most people. Or I'm put off by how religion has been politicized, okay? Or I don't feel like I know enough to talk about religious or spiritual topics. Now, if I had to guess, most people in here probably would not say the second one of claiming not to be religious and yet you don't care about things about God or faith. But if I had to guess, I think this first one about causing tension, and maybe even this last one about not knowing enough, if I had to poll everybody, I would bet you might cite one of those reasons or something similar to it for having a little bit of hesitation, right? And again, I get it. You're not alone. This is where we're at. This is the state of things. But let me just show, again, this is from a lot of their research. Let me just give you a quick list of what this all has resulted in. Okay, so compared to 40 years ago, 1982, I know, isn't that crazy? 1982. I was not alive yet, I'm sorry, but I hear it's great. Compared to 40 years ago, Christians today are less likely to believe that every Christian has a responsibility to share their faith. And when I looked at the specific percentages, it's kind of alarming that less and less Christians today think that it's their job to share their faith and be a witness. Maybe you've noticed this. Or they're less likely to claim that their church does a good job of training people to share their faith. And I hope we can change that today. Okay? It's part of the reason why we're doing this. Or they're less likely to share by the way that they live rather than speaking about it. They're even less likely to do that. Or they're less likely to speak about the changes or benefits of faith in Jesus. So maybe Jesus has made a big impact in their life, but they're not going to share about it with other people. Or they're less likely to tell the story of how they first came to believe. Or maybe some story of how God saved them from their wayward path. They're just not going to talk about it. They're less likely to quote passages from the Bible. They're less likely to challenge someone to defend their beliefs. All these things we're less likely to do. And all these things, though, have a part in kind of what sharing faith involves. Because again, maybe a lot of you grew up in church. And maybe your parents believed, and your grandparents believed, and your great-great-parents believed, but think about this. Somebody had to have a spiritual conversation with one of your ancestors. And because of that, them making that bold move to have that conversation, now you are a believer. Because someone way back when talked about Jesus and shared Jesus with your great-great-grandpa, and you kept the faith, and your family kept the faith all the way to you. Or maybe you're the first one in your family, and are you going to keep it going? Again, think about the church had to spread, and people had to spread the message. And it was normal people living radically transformed lives, like you do, because you do live differently. I know you do. But it doesn't mean you have to be crazy or perfect or anything, but you're eager for those opportunities to share your faith. Being eager as opposed to being reluctant. A little bit of a posture thing. And so if any of those reasons resonated with you, and if you think, yeah, I'm a little bit reluctant for this or that, then hopefully by what we get through today, and actually we're going to continue this a little bit next week, because this is more than just a one-week thing. We might need a little bit of more work to do. But I promise that this stuff is really helpful. It's been really helpful for me, actually. And I'm a pastor. I'm supposed to do this naturally. But some of this stuff is very unnatural, especially for how the world works. But we can make it so that it's just a part of who we are. And it can be a part of who you are. And when you walk out of here today, I hope that you're a little bit of a different person who's more eager to share the faith, share that antidote that people need. Okay? That's what you're going to get now. Leslie's going to hand out the inventory, the magical inventory. And just pass it around, look it over. It's going to look something like this. And it's real simple. But you're just going to fill it out. We're going to have some time set apart to do that. Oh, and let me just make one thing very clear, because I had some people take this to see if it was clear. In the boxes, you're supposed to put a number. So like if you agree with the somewhat like me for I believe everyone needs their sins forgiven, you're going to put a 3, because then you're going to be adding up all the numbers in that section and then put the total where the total spot goes. Don't just put a check mark. That'll make your life more difficult. So put a number in the right number column with however you kind of identify with those things. Count them all up. On the back, you can put your totals. Otherwise, there's totals on the side, and it spells out an acronym, EAGER. This is good stuff. Otherwise, you got 10 minutes to do that. 10 minutes? I'm just throwing it all at you guys. I know you could do it. But yeah, take 10 minutes, and then if you have extra time, you can talk about the whole experience. Okay. Sounds like you all had a chance to fill it out. Maybe talk about it a little bit. I know it's kind of vague and telling you to discuss it. You're like, what do we talk about? Well, how was that? You ever taken anything like this before? No. I had not seen anything else like it myself. And I'll tell you, I have taken this before. One of the people that was part of putting this together was one of my professors at the seminary. And he was really big on this stuff, really made an impression on me, because I got to tell you, maybe you don't know this, but I'm not exactly someone that is super confrontational. Maybe I don't really like to ruffle feathers all that much. I like helping people feel comfortable. It's kind of how God wired me a little bit. But when I started thinking about it with this professor at the seminary, I was kind of realizing I was making an idol out of my comfort. I was making an idol out of something that could be good, of helping people feel at ease. That was subverting opportunities to share the gospel. I was getting in the way. And that was very convicting for me. And I'm still myself, and it's taken a lot of time, but I really have no choice because I'm a pastor, so I have to work on this, But I really, really, really had to work on it. I was always kind of the peacemaker and smooth things over person with most groups, and saying something that I know is going to trigger something in someone else and make them resistant and defensive, even if it's the truth and if I say it as loving as I can, that is really hard for me naturally. And so, the fourth description under grasp the calling, I rely on God in order to share the gospel. That is very, very true for me. Because I absolutely have to. Because the more you kind of realize this, especially if you're someone like that, who you don't really like ruffling feathers or saying something that's hard to hear, you need that. But I'll tell you what else. If you're someone that doesn't mind ruffling feathers, I love you. And you know what? We make a good duo, I'd say. Good cop, bad cop, a little bit. And if you're someone like that, the world needs you, and the world needs that confidence. But I want to tell you, what your prayer needs to be is for patience and humility and gentleness. Those fruits of the Spirit that we need. Whereas I need to pray for boldness and courage. If you don't mind saying the hard thing, can your prayer be for patience and humility and gentleness? Because you don't mind kind of jumping right in, and we need you. But no matter where you fall on that spectrum, whether you're kind of timid like me or you're a little bit more of a lion with things, and everyone in between, you all have a place and responsibility and are able to share the gospel. You can. Now I do want to, so you had something else handed out to you, and we're going to be working our way through that a little bit. So maybe there were some areas that you did not score super high in, and maybe you're even reluctant to put the score that you really felt because you thought you might be talking about it, you didn't want to share maybe how low you really thought you were, or whatever it is. There's a handout with kind of concrete ways, depending on where you're at, to be working on that. But I just want to walk through the categories a little bit. So the first one, E, embrace the gospel. This one, as you could maybe tell from the descriptions, is all about your kind of personal belief in the gospel. And these descriptions get at that. I believe everyone needs their sins forgiven. I believe forgiveness only comes through death and resurrection of Jesus. I trust in Jesus for eternal life. And when I think about who I am, I see my primary identity as a child of God. And I'm quick to forgive others. Now, maybe you're high, maybe you're low on some, but I'll tell you what this is really getting at. Kind of that shadow side of the gospel, where the gospel is good news, but it does have kind of a sobering truth attached to it. And that's what the second description is getting at. I believe forgiveness only comes through the death and resurrection of Jesus. As in, not all roads lead to heaven. Okay? And if we could wake up every morning and just remind ourselves of that little fact, I think it would go a long way in kind of giving us a sense of urgency. People in my life, people that I love, not believing, whatever. And I can, crack a joke, 100 times over and always bring a smile to a person's face. But eventually, if I don't ever actually have a time where I maybe take the gospel seriously enough to kind of talk about how Jesus is the only way, what am I doing? Am I missing out? And that's kind of what this first one is all about. It's about embracing the gospel, the good parts, the forgiving, the life, the peace, the joy, all the great things that come with it, the things that we hold on to and know for ourselves. But also the fact that that does come through Jesus. And not just through any old thing, but through Jesus. Embracing the gospel, okay? Second, apply spiritual disciplines. And by that we mean, are you being in the Word, like Pastor Tucker talks about? Are you doing the kinds of things that help nurture your faith? Are you kind of walking the walk for yourself? Worship, reading the Bible devotionally, prayer. Are you around Christians, maybe in groups or other things? And is faith a part of your everyday life? And I think that's the key. Because with the first 4 descriptions, it's maybe things on Sunday or things at special times, but that last one is really important. Is faith something that you see as part of the everyday and not just a part of the Sunday? And again, you can be really honest with yourself and say, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, it's more of like I compartmentalize my life. Maybe a little bit too much. Then maybe it's something we can just be honest about and see how we can work on that. Third category, grasp the calling. So this is a little bit of what I was leading in with earlier. Do you think that this is something that you have a personal responsibility for? Has God called Christians in general to spread the good news, or is that only the job of pastors and preachers? Do you recognize the impact of spiritual conversations, or have you not really seen that? Do you feel a personal responsibility to share your faith, or do you always think God will just use someone else? Do you rely on God, or do you rely on how much you know, or how smart you can sound, or whatever else? I tell you can be really smart. Don't ever rely on that. You always have to rely on God. A lot of things can get in the way. And do you see sharing the gospel as one way you can serve other people? Again, that whole kind of antidote analogy. You are actually doing something beneficial, even if it's a little harmful or intrusive. Now, this is a way to serve people, right? Moving on to E, the second E, expect spiritual conversations. And this one I thought, out of everything, was really interesting. For one, do you notice spiritual conversations happening? Because they might be happening, and you're just not maybe having the eyes to see. Do you look for opportunities to share your faith? And I think this is getting at that whole mindset of being eager for them and almost wanting them. And almost seeing that, you know what, God, are you opening a door here? Are you moving me to speak here? Did you put this person in my path for whatever reason, and I can just kind of put something out there? Okay, let me share this. So there's a pastor. His name is Derwin Gray. He used to be a player for the Indianapolis Colts. That was my team. Go Colts, go Peyton. And he was a linebacker or something. Played with them for 5 years, okay? For 5 years, there was another teammate in their locker room. When they'd have their locker room time, he would say, do y'all know Jesus? That's all he'd say. And then, see if any conversations start up. And he would do that all the time. Probably got really annoying. And Derwin Gray, this guy, he did not know Jesus. He did not have faith. He did not believe. But then some things happened in his life, and he went to go talk to that teammate who for 5 years cast out the line. No one ever bit. And then Derwin's life gets changed around, and now he's a pastor of an incredible church. They call his teammate the naked preacher. It's pretty funny. But still, that guy, that teammate, in a place where you would never really expect someone to be sharing their faith, would take an opportunity when he's got a captive audience, say, do y'all know Jesus? And he would get shrugged off, ignored, probably snickered at for 5 years. And then something clicked for Derwin. And it changed his life. And now he's a author, pastor, incredible person who God has used to bring so many to faith, but all because that guy took a chance and just shared. Very simply. You get what I'm saying here? Like, that guy was just, again, 5 years. Like, yeah, you might put some things out there and you don't know what's going to happen. You just don't. But you're scattering the seed and God is causing the growth. Okay, this is what this is all about. Moving on to the last category, R, respond confidently. Do you invest time and energy into preparing for spiritual conversations? All of you? Yes. Because you're here. So you got that one. Top. Nice. Do you try to understand others? And for some people, they're very naturally good at this, I think. And for some people, you might not care to understand others. And I think there's a little bit of a nature thing, maybe a little bit of a nurture thing there, but that is important. That is important. I don't want you to dismiss it if it's not something that you maybe naturally take to. Do you try to adapt your responses to someone in this conversation based on where they're at? Are you patient with others during the awkward moments? Now that's huge. That locker room guy, he had to be pretty patient, okay? Not getting anything. Guys are just thinking about the game or whatever. And the awkward moments will come. They will absolutely come. They're guaranteed, okay? But to know that that's just part of the process. It's part of the process, those awkward moments. And finally, do you experience positive benefits from spiritual conversations? If you've had them, you know what that's all about. So again, we were looking at that. Now, what you're going to be doing kind of to wrap up today is with that packet, that little second packet that you got, you're looking at those, how you kind of scored yourself, and you're going to be seeing, okay, they just kind of suggest some ways to improve, and so you're going to be looking through that list, looking at how you scored on your inventory, and then seeing, okay, is there one way, one thing that I can kind of focus on that would ultimately lead me to be better equipped and more eager to share my faith? And so you're going to be taking some time to do that, but there's just one kind of reminder I want to put at you before I have you do that. Raise your hand if you recognize this. Nice. I figured you guys would. Preaching to the choir over here. Yes, so this is a boat. Well, you see that. This is a boat that was excavated from the Sea of Galilee, and what they think is this would be one of the boats that would have been around during Jesus' time, a fishing boat. Okay? Now, lots of interesting things with the fishing boat, but the key to the fishing boat is that in order to get the fish that you needed, it was a team effort. You do not go out in the boat and all you sit in your corner of the boat and you cast out your line, you put it in the holder, and like you wait for a bite. Is that how fishing works? Like in a boat? I've actually never really fished on a boat. Should have thought about this more. But I don't know, you don't just sit there individually and just cast out your own line. Okay? Now think about this. How Jesus said to Peter, you're going to fish for people. And this was their understanding of fishing. That it was not an individual thing, but ultimately a team effort. If they were going to bring in more fish than just one on a line, but a whole net full, it was a team effort. And if we, the church, are called to bring people into God's kingdom, you don't need to see yourself as an individual out there in the wild, wild west. Okay? Be a little scary out there. You are with the team, and it's a team effort. And maybe someone will have a conversation here, and another person will pray for them there, and another person will have a follow-up conversation here, and maybe it will be challenging here, and then another person will be comforting here, and lots of people will be praying, and with all the church working together, that's where fish get brought in. Team effort. You're part of God's fishing crew, if I could. Okay? But you're not alone in this. And we all need each other. That's how God set it up to work. We get to lean on each other, talk to each other, pray for each other, encourage each other, guide each other, advise each other, love each other. And that's how God works. That's how He equips us for this very big task that none of us can do on our own. Right? Yeah, just a good reminder. Now, I do want you to take some time. Like I said, look through that list of things. Find one. You can just read through it individually. Just take some time to sit with it. And then I'm going to give you another 5 minutes or so, and then you're going to talk about it. But here, this is just to yourself, look through the list, and then try to come up with one thing that you can focus on. Okay? Okay, there we go. Good. Hopefully you found something. Now, it's really just going to be 5 minutes. Talk about what you chose amongst yourselves, and then draw straws for someone to pray for you and for everyone, for God to bless that effort and to bless you in your eagerness to share and talk. And before I let you do that, because that'll be your closing prayer, and then you'll be free to go after that, next week, we're going to be talking about what can these conversations look like? Because maybe that's the thing holding you back. You're like, I don't even know what do you say? What do you do? And I can tell you a 30-second story. I'm going to. The author of this book was riding on a 13-and-a-half-hour bus ride and was reading a book about evangelism, and it was blowing their mind. They're just like, wow, this book about evangelism is great. And they get through most of the bus ride, 12 hours of it, and they realize someone's sitting next to them, and they're like, wait a second, this book is telling me to like share my faith, and I've got this person sitting next to me. Okay, maybe I should actually do something. So she's like, okay, getting really nervous, but then she reaches out and she says, hi. And the other person says, hey. She's like, okay, this is going well so far. So she says, coming or going? And the lady says, going. Says, okay, what do I do now? And she says, you looking for a new place? And then the lady says, I'm not sure. She says, oh. And then sits. And they sit. And then all of a sudden, the lady that she's sitting with, that she started talking to, starts engaging more. And they're talking, and hearing about their crazy life, and she's not sure whether she's coming or going because she just got evicted and she's moving to a new town. She's not sure what to do. She doesn't know anyone there. They get talking about this whole thing, and they get to the place where they're talking about Jesus and faith. You know how it all started? Hi. Coming or going? Oh. That's all she said. It's not crazy, right? Just expecting it, being eager for it. Just going to give you that little thing just to bring it back next week. But you guys, talk about what you are going to do. Pray for God to bless that, and then you're free to go. So thank you so much.